What's up, everybody? We are back for more Malifaux lore, and this time we're talking about Kirai Ankoku of the Resurrectionists. As always, this video will contain spoilers for all of the stories that feature Kirai as well as some others. There will be a list of the relevant stories in the description below, so let's jump into it. Kirai came through the breach to Malifaux from the Three Kingdoms in order to make a better life for herself and hoping to support her family back home. She started working at the Key and Gong as a prostitute and soon became popular among its guild patrons. One of those patrons decided to offer her a job as a groundskeeper at the governor's mansion. Later, the governor needed to hire an escort for his young son to attend a ball, and Kirai was chosen due to her good reputation. What the governor general did not expect was that the two would fall in love. Kirai and Francis Kitchener are in bed having pillow talk at the Key and Gong. Francis surprises her with a beautiful green ring and tells her the story of how he found it while exploring an old building in the quarantine zone that contained a giant astrolabe. They discuss how Francis's father, the Governor General, knows about their relationship and is not going to allow Francis to continue to consort with someone of her class and status. They discuss potentially running away back to Earth, but decide against it. Suddenly they hear a noise coming from the door, and Francis recognizes the danger. He draws his saber, and as a man bursts through the door, he attacks him, disarming the man. Kirai is surprised at his skill with the blade, and Francis tells her to run away, but she is frozen in fear. As more men try to fight their way through the door, Kirai notices that one of them is wearing a guild uniform, as he gives the order for the others to shoot her. As they struggle, he decides to take the shot for himself, and Francis jumps in front of him to protect Kirai. The bullet hits him in the chest, and he falls to the floor dead. The men all stand in shock at what they have done, as Kirai is able to escape unnoticed. Gideon, the man who was in charge of the operation, and the one who killed Francis, tracks Kirai back to her quarters. She recognizes him from the Key and Gong, and attempts to attack him, but he is easily able to ward off her blows. She is crying hysterically, and Gideon feels pity for her. When she realizes her attacks are ineffective, she begs the man to kill her, as she feels she has nothing left to live for. He notices that she does not have a look of despair or sadness, but instead of deep hatred. He draws his pistol and considers going through with it, but is unable. Instead, he puts the gun down and leaves, knowing that she will end her life anyway. Days later, Gideon finds himself in a cell in a guild dungeon, being interrogated by the Governor General. Gideon tells the man that what happened was an accident, and that he did in fact accomplish his mission and kill the girl. The Governor General does not believe him and leaves, intending to hang him in the morning. That night, Ikirio comes to his cell and kills him, and viciously mutilates his body. The Governor General attends his son's funeral, accompanied by the Malifaux elite. After the ceremony ends, he informs Hoffman of several unusual murders of guild officials and assigns him to investigate. Nicodem, the Undertaker, is tending to the burial site as they all leave. He senses Kirai's power and sees her hiding out of sight. He notices that she's in pain and consoles her as she cries. After she has gathered herself, Nicodem tells her that she can't give up as she still has more to do. He leads her to a fresh grave where he orders Mortimer to dig up the body. He shows Kirai the mutilated body of Gideon, and she is sad that she won't have a chance to get revenge on him. Nicodem, suddenly going from soothing and comforting to forceful and stern, accuses Kirai of being the killer, and suddenly a surge of memories flood into her mind, memories of the murder that she had hidden from herself. She loses consciousness and has a vision of a spirit. A few days earlier, just after Francis's death, and Kirai is running through the streets of the slums, trying to hide from the guild patrols. Having given up on her life, she lays down in the street, not caring for her own safety. But she does take the time to remove her ring and hide it on a chain around her neck, as it is the only thing she still has that she cares for. As she loses consciousness, Ikirio leaves her body, and summons spirits to hunt down the men responsible for Francis's death. They first find the two men who participated in the attack with Gideon at the Key and Gong, and they are both killed by an Onryo. Next, they find the man who informed the guild of Kirai's location, and he is killed by the Datsuba in a secure guild office. And finally, the man who tracked Kirai to the Key and Gong is found and ambushed by Shikome. Kirai wakes up in the street believing it was all a dream. Nicodem takes Kirai back to his observatory and starts teaching her about necromancy. He points out the unmoving red star in the sky and explains that it can be used to guide you to Kythera, the source of all necromantic magic in Malifaux. Kirai asks if she'll be able to use the powers to bring Francis back, and Nicodem says no, and she asks why she should care about it then. He asks if her quest for vengeance stopped with Gideon, and she responds that she is also out for the Governor General himself. Kirai thinks about it and decides that she will become Nicodem's apprentice in order to help her take down the Governor General. Nicodem tempts her further by suggesting that she may in fact be able to summon the spirit of Francis. He takes her down into his labs and explains that when animating bodies, they lose most of their abilities that they had during life, but he hopes that she may eventually be able to infuse a corpse with a spirit to make it more powerful. She tries to summon a spirit, and for the first time is able to do it consciously, but is unable to meld it with the zombie. Kirai spends some of her free time looking through the books in Nicodem's vast library. One in particular calls her attention, but she is unable to read the Neverborn writing. Mortimer walks in with several undead servants as they tend to chores. Kirai hears the sound of a bell from outside, and Mortimer informs her that that's an alarm. She follows him and sees that outside, Nicodem's army of zombies appear to be engaging with a street gang. As she watches, she sees Hamlin emerge and summon a wave of rats, which help the gangsters push the zombies back and into the tower. Nicodem appears and tells Kirai to hide upstairs. He tells Mortimer to prepare for their escape and then confronts Hamlin. Their minions do battle, and Hamlin appears to be looking for something. Suddenly, the guild burst in, and Lady J cuts down several of Nicodem's followers as the judge kills Hamlin, and Nicodem retreats up the stairs. Meanwhile, Kirai is hiding in an upstairs room, trying and failing to summon Akirio. She hears footsteps approaching, and Hamlin enters the room, stating that he senses the Gorgon. In fear, Kirai is able to summon the Datsuba, and it attacks Hamlin, but he inflicts it with the plague even in its spiritual form, and he seizes on Kirai. Maggots pour out of him and enter her skin, and her hand starts to turn black as Hamlin grabs the ring around her neck and pushes her away. He pulls out a metal box with spinning gears covered in stars and goes to work on it. Nicodem enters the room and sees the blackness on Kirai's hand moving up her arm. Hamlin ignores them both as Nicodem frantically hands Kirai a soul stone, explaining to her that she can use it to heal herself. He expects it to fail as it is very difficult to do without much practice, but Kirai, being a master of souls, is easily able to remove the blight, restoring her arm. She wants to stand and fight, but Nicodem convinces her to run. Hamlin inserts Kirai's ring into the box, and the stars start to move in their orbits. Outside in the real sky, the red star over Kythera starts to descend. Kirai, Mortimer, and Nicodem escape out a back door of the tower. As they run away from the building, a purple wave hits them and knocks them all down, knocking Kirai unconscious. However, Akirio is not affected and emerges from her body, looking for revenge. She finds Hamlin, intent to stop what he is doing, but he sends a wave of vermin after her, and she feels herself being overcome. Hamlin is distracted in meditation as his ritual is almost complete, but Akirio summons several Gaki, known for their ravenous appetites, who start consuming the vermin, leaving Akirio with an opening to remove the ring from the device. She slams the now powerless Hamlin against the wall, and as she tries to make sure that he is dead, the self-destruct that Mortimer activated goes off and the tower explodes. Many years later, and Molly is wandering through the slums with several of her new friends. She sees a small woman, Kirai, being followed into an alley, and Molly rushes to save her. As she turns the corner, she sees two of the men being brutally slaughtered in a torrent of spirits as one tries to escape. One of Molly's flesh constructs smashes him against the wall, killing him instantly. Kirai approaches, and Molly tries to talk to the woman, but Kirai does not respond. She looks down at Philip's disembodied head in the stroller, and the flesh construct following Molly, and says, "I like your friends." The two spend the day together walking and talking about their past. Kirai is happy to have company who seems to be able to relate to her, as they have both been through trauma. They overhear a man who is trying to force his 5-year-old niece to work as a chimney sweep, as her mother protests, and he threatens violence against them. Molly steps in, and when the man does not back down, Molly calls for the hulking flesh construct that she has aptly named Archie, and he folds the man in half and shoves him up his own chimney. The two continue wandering the slums, doing similar good deeds. They bump into a man who is threatening to beat several prostitutes who work for him. Kirai cuts his hand off with her shears, and he pleads for his life, telling her that the man she really wants is Gart Ward, the man who kidnaps the women and then sells them into prostitution. She kills the man, but is disgusted by this practice and continues hunting pimps. Gart, who hears about many of his associates being killed, sends his son Eli to look into it. Eli and his men corner the pair in an alley, and are surprised to find that the rumors of 2 young women causing all this mayhem are true. Molly jokes with the men, and then Kirai and Akirio decapitate each of them. Afterwards, Kirai nonchalantly stacks the heads up in a pyramid. Knowing that these criminal organizations will send more men after them, the women decide to make a preemptive strike. They find the Grey Lord, Gart Ward's club, and fight their way inside, using an army of zombies and spirits to kill all the guards, but sparing all of the prostitutes who work for them. They corner Gart in his upstairs office, and he defiantly declares that killing him won't stop his operation, as his son will simply take over for him. Kirai pulls Eli's head out of a bag and throws it at Gart's feet. She explains that she is not normally this cruel, but that Gart is too evil and irredeemable for her to show compassion. He asks for her to kill him and get it over with, and she says that she will not be rushed. Later, Kirai returns Earthside and goes to Vietnam. She seeks out a house with charms on the door to ward off evil spirits. Inside, she meets Bin Nguyen and his brother Su Shang. She waits as they perform some sort of ritual. A corpse lay on the table, and they are attempting to bind a spirit to it. Kirai is impressed, though their abilities are far inferior to her own. As the spirit appears, they place a mask on the corpse, seemingly to control it, but suddenly they lose control, and the spirit struggles against them. Bin banishes it, and scolds his brother for their failure. Bin turns to Kirai and asks why she is there, clearly losing his patience with her presence. She demonstrates her power by summoning the same spirit and easily manipulating it to mock her movements. Bin is surprised and exclaims something in Vietnamese that Kirai does not understand. She explains that she was sent by a man named Ao Mak and asks them to attend a meeting with her. Bin and Sushang accept and head to Ao Mak's office. At the meeting, Kirai watches as Ao Mak convinces Bin and Sushang to accept Kirai's training in order that they'll be able to lead an army of ghosts for Ao Mak's masters. Bin senses that they will not take no for an answer and so agrees. Ao Mak takes them to a graveyard where Kirai will be training them, and after some hardship, Bin begins to make progress. However, Sushang senses the danger and fears the power that they are learning to wield and decides to discontinue his training. Ao Mak returns and tells Kirai that her and Bin will be going on a raid of a guild shipment of soulstones. Kirai is surprised as she thinks they are not ready for the operation yet, and Bin insists on bringing his brother in spite of his reluctance to train, hoping that the experience will encourage him to continue. They stake out the docks where the soulstones are being held and create a plan. Bin hides under the docks, watching the guild patrols and preparing to strike as his brother approaches him, to Bin's surprise. Sushang tells him that he doesn't want to go through with the operation, and Bin argues with him, but the guild guards overhear him. Bin bluffs to the guards, playing innocent, but one of the guards notices a soulstone around his neck and sounds the alarm. Suddenly, Kirai appears and her minions attack the guards, and a battle breaks out. Bin and Kirai push up towards the boat with their objective as Sushang sits back and sobs. Several death marshals emerge from the boat and engage them, to their surprise. As the battle intensifies, Bin is stabbed by one of the death marshals. Sushang sees this and charges one of the marshals, killing him instantly, and knocking several soulstones onto the ground. However, another death marshal sees this and unloads his pistol into Sushang's body, killing him. Kirai watches in horror as Bin crawls his way towards the marshal, seizing a handful of soulstones that are on the ground. Kirai, sensing what's coming, jumps in the water for safety, as a burst of purple energy erupts from Bin's body, and spirits materialize all around him. Then the entire dock explodes. Kirai returns to Ao Mak's office and threatens to kill him for endangering her and Bin. Mak reminds her that she made a pact with his master, and suddenly there's a swirl of mist in the room, and Bin appears. He advances towards Mak and tells him that he knows the guild were warned of their operation. Mak pleads for Kirai's help, and she refuses. He pleads with Bin, explaining that he was just following orders, and that it was not his intention for Sushang to die, as he wasn't even supposed to go on the mission in the first place. He offers to make Bin the same deal that he made with Kirai, to help him bring back his dead loved one in exchange for service to the Court of Two. After getting confirmation from Kirai, Bin agrees. Kirai later returns through the breach to Malifaux. She has to duck several guild guards at the train station who recognize her from her wanted poster, as her notoriety seems to have grown. She makes her way to the hanging tree and cuts down one of the bodies as Jackdaw approaches her. He says nothing, and she feels very uneasy and prepares to defend herself. However, he slowly approaches and removes the noose from the dead body and hands it to her. Confused, she takes the noose and leaves, making her way to one of Nicodem's graveyards. There, she finds Mortimer and asks him where Nicodem is. He informs her that he was killed. Kirai then asks for help exhuming a dead body, and Mortimer points her to an assistant. She recognizes the man as an old co-worker of hers from the Kian Gong named Jian. He agrees to help her dig up Francis's body, but is deeply unnerved by the idea, even more so when Kirai tells him that she intends to resurrect him. Kirai heads to the graveyard and notices Jackdaw wandering around the grounds. She makes her way to the grave, and soon Jian arrives with a wheelbarrow. As they load the body up, several guild guards approach and try to stop them. Jian escapes, and Kirai engages the guards. She kills one, but finds herself in a stalemate with the rest, when suddenly Jackdaw attacks. Kirai prepares to fight both foes, but Daw only attacks the guards, letting her go free. Kirai heads to different locations in the slums collecting relics she had stashed, and then sleeps in an abandoned mansion. The next day she heads to the Kian Gong, avoiding guild patrols on the way. She enters the building and bumps into an old friend who is happy to see her. However, she is cold towards him, only focused on her mission. She tells him to warn everyone to leave, as what she has planned will be very dangerous, and he is disappointed but agrees. She then bumps into the manager and several of his guards, who try to stop her, and a fight breaks out. She manifests the Akirio and destroys all of the men, afterwards passing out. She is awoken by Jian, who is horrified at what he has seen, but he helps her bring the body up to the room where Francis was killed, and then warns Kirai that people will be coming to stop her. She replies, they can try, and she tells him to leave for his safety. Kirai assembles the relics that she had collected, as well as the noose, and begins performing a ritual. Above Francis's body, a portal to the beyond begins to form. She hears a racket coming from outside, but ignores it in order to focus on her ritual. As the noises get louder, she notices that Jackdaw is present in the room. Jian returns and warns Kirai that both the guild and the Ten Thunders are on their way there for her. She tells him it was stupid for him to return, as she notices the form of Francis's spirit start to move through the portal. She looks down the hall and sees shadows approaching the room, and turns to Daw, asking for his help. The two of them engage the attackers, slaughtering the entire group. After the battle, she heads back to focusing on her ritual, but one of the guardsmen in the door is still alive and takes a shot at her. The bullet destroys one of the relics in front of her, and Kirai starts to feel the ritual failing as the portal begins to close. Kirai realizes that she needs to make a human sacrifice in order to maintain the portal, and turns to strike down Jian, who pleads for his life. However, suddenly Daw crushes the man's head and then approaches the portal. Kirai notices a second spirit trying to make its way through, and before she is able to stop him, the second spirit fully materializes and the portal explodes. Kirai notices that Jackdaw's movements suddenly become more normal, as if he suddenly had a soul. She attacks him in a rage, but he dodges her blows and is able to escape. Kirai collapses next to Francis's body, and he is awake but does not react to Kirai, an empty vessel without a soul. And that's it, the full canon story of Kirai Ankoku. The expression, "Hell hath no fury like a woman's scorn," really comes to mind with this one. I can't wait to see her leading an army of ghosts in the other side. Leave a comment below and let me know which master you would like to see me do a video on next. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more, and thanks for watching.